today to talk to you about what I consider the 5 essential ingredients to ensure success in trauma therapy. And we have the clicker. And here are our goals and objectives, and you see that there are 5. I hope there are. Yeah, there are 5 objectives, and we're going to spend a little time on each one. And ingredients, I like this photo. And now we get to safety and stability, safety first. Janina Fisher is a very well-known trauma expert, and she believes that you cannot have recovery from trauma unless you have stability so that you can remember the past without becoming overwhelmed and then re-traumatized. She also is a proponent of the therapist assuming an active role because trauma survivors cannot teach themselves how to be safe and stable. They don't know what the words mean. They have no inner map. And so it differs from other kinds of therapy in that way, is that we do more sometimes psychoeducation at the beginning. Stephen Porges says that safety is the treatment for trauma. It's the only way you can get out of trauma, gridlock. And I would agree with that. It starts with connection. And then the clinical question is, how can therapists guide survivors of trauma to recover their capacity to connect with humanity when their bodies are in a chronic state of defense? Good question. This is a summary of the polyvagal system, the different circuits, the 3 circuits. And we're going to be mostly concerned with the that one doesn't work. Oh well, works up here. With sympathetic adrenal, no, not that one, sorry, ventral vagal system. This is social and self-engagement, and it leads to all these elements of safety. And that's why we're aiming there. There have been some new approaches to balancing the autonomic nervous system and bringing people online in their ventral vagal circuits. And Stanley Rosenberg, I've been working with him recently. He has worked with Stephen Porges for a long time. He has developed simple exercises to detect and treat imbalance in the polyvagal system, especially in the ventral vagal, which, as we've said, is hugely important to recovery from trauma. So I'm going to guide you through this exercise. If you want to do it, it's very simple. You put both your hands behind your head and you're holding your occiput. Don't clasp your fingers, just kind of hold there. And then you start with your eyes straight ahead, and your head is steady while you, when you're ready, move your eyes to the right. And when you detect a desire to take a breath, sigh, or some other kind of release, do so. And then you bring your eyes back to center. And then when you're ready, you move your eyes to the left. And you find the same point and release that. And then take your hands down and ask yourself, what is different? And most of my clients answer, I just feel more balanced. And some of them will say things rather cryptically like, I don't know why, but I just like this. So what I can tell you is that Stanley is just starting to teach to therapists, psychotherapists, and other people beyond the hands-on therapists. And I have been lucky enough to bring him in with a webinar and some training videos. And so if you're interested, take a look at my website. But what this does, we didn't include the detection. You can actually tell if a person, ventral vagal system is unbalanced. But this assumes that it is and then offers a correction. So it's pretty simple, and people can do it by themselves as many times as they want to. And I think if you do it at the beginning of the session, and then you do whatever work you're going to do, and then at the end of the session, you have the possibility of more effective work. It boosts your work, in other words. Okay? We just did that one, I thought. Am I going backwards? No. Yes. No, I'm not. Okay, here we go. It's the right one. No, that's not the right one. I thought this was perfect, Mary. What happened? I went the wrong way. I took a wrong turn. All right. Ingredient number 2 is to create corrective experiences through energy psychology. The reason we're all here at this conference is because we know that that can be done. And I'm only going to use one of many, many examples. I usually start with the basic recipe of EFT because I can see how a client is going to react. It is something that is easy to follow. And the advantage of almost any energy approach is that negative effects are really rare. So if you're working with somebody who's hugely traumatized, I feel completely safe in allowing them, encouraging them to do this kind of work. There are many kinds of EFT tools. The one that I like to use is called chasing the pain, but I've turned it into chasing the symptom because I use it with broad symptoms of all kinds. And I'm going to give you an example of a complex PTSD patient who complained of a very intense phobic reaction to flowers growing outside her therapist's office. And she was very upset because it was making it hard for her to get to her sessions. And the interesting thing about this case is I had worked with her about 20 years before when I was an intern at County Mental Health. And she remembered me and got her therapist to call me to see if I would work with her. And I said, sure. So we started with the EFT basic recipe. And I use touch and breathe with her, which I do with more sensitive clients. So instead of tapping, we touch the point and then breathe. And that works very well. It's much more gentle. So after a couple of rounds, we use the reminder phrase, this fear of flowers. The SUDS level did not drop more than 1 point. I think she got down 1 point. So I then explained the concept of chasing the symptom and told her that instead of staying with one reminder phrase, we were going to encourage her to express thoughts, feelings, reactions, sensations, images, anything that came up while stimulating a particular point. That material would then be used to form the next reminder phrase for stimulating the next point. So let's see. In the second session with the chase the symptom approach, the client made a connection spontaneously between the flowers outside her therapist's office and flowers in a vase in the room where she was molested by her grandfather. And after we explored that a little bit, I asked whether she needed to be afraid of the flowers. She said no, because they're growing in a safe place. Her SUDS level had dropped by that time 8 points instead of 2. So she was down from 10 to 2 points, which is a pretty good result. So after one more round of tapping in the phrase, I'm safe now and the flowers are safe now, she could picture the flowers with no negative reaction at all. I checked in after 6 months and her negative reaction still had not come back. It may seem like a minor symptom to you, but to her it was a breakthrough because it was one of the few times she'd been able to break the fear response from the trauma that it was connected to and to have a complete solution, if you will. You can obtain similar results with other survival responses as well, fight, flight, freeze. Okay, so the second ingredient is, oh, sorry, I already said that. The third ingredient is to develop secure attachment in therapy through relational healing. You know, most of our clients, let's face it, have some form or several forms of insecure attachment. Through our presence, we can begin to repair these. And the quote that I love by Bonnie Badenoch is that through the process of rupture and repair, we can offer an opportunity to develop or restore secure attachment. So it's not that we should be, you know, terrified because we made a terrible mistake. We see it as an opportunity for repair. Here's a list of secure attachment qualities. You will get these slides at some point, so you can read them through then. This is an example of secure attachment. This is my 2-year-old puppy, who is the best representative of a ventral vagal co-regulation that I've ever found. So say hello to Allie. Okay, the third ingredient is developing secure attachment through relational healing. This is the same one that I've been talking about, but we're going in a little bit different direction, which is into the therapy relationship. So oftentimes you get some weird reaction that neither you nor the client know where it comes from. I walked into my therapy room one day, and my client Sandra was absolutely furious. I mean, she couldn't speak. She had sort of smoke coming out of her ears, and even though I expressed curiosity about how she was feeling, everything was met with just this silence. And finally, I thought to ask, what were you thinking about just before I came in? And Sandra told me she was thinking about her alcoholic father and how angry she was that he'd robbed her of so much of her childhood, and all of his attempts to scare her and hurt her and abuse her. And as she made that connection, her anger completely vanished. And then she said, I'm so glad we figured that out. I knew I wasn't angry at you, but I didn't know what was going on. And that can happen a lot of the time if you use your ventral vagal bridges to check in to see where the client really is, and finally you get lucky. So another example is a little bit more complex. It deals with projective identification, which most of you know is the experience of the therapist feeling the client's feelings as if they're their own feelings. And I had one client with whom I had a very good relationship, and what happened was I had this feeling of disgust that came up, and I have never had that kind of feeling about any client. I was shocked. I couldn't understand it. I worked with, got nowhere. So the next session, I decided I would find a way to present these reactions to her, very carefully, of course. I said, Susan, I wonder if you could help me understand some feelings and reactions that I've been having about you. I don't want to have them, and I can't figure out where they came from. Are you aware of having any recent negative feelings about yourself that are somewhat different? And she said yes, which surprised me. And then she started talking about having retrieved images of her violin teacher molesting her at the end of lessons. She had not remembered it for a long time, but when it came up spontaneously, she did remember much more of the context. She said she was dirty and ashamed, and once she claimed these feelings, magically, I had no more negative reactions towards her at all. And we were able to work through some of the memory together, and it made sense why it was so hard for her to develop intimacy in her life. So how do we turn on safety in therapy? One clue that I'll mention is traumatized people, I learned this from Stephen Porges too, can turn off their visual perceptions. So in other words, they don't look at you a lot of the time if they're very traumatized and regressed, but not the nervous system's ability to interpret the reciprocity of a voice. So that means the more pleasing and melodic and softer your voice is, the more they will tune into you. And I've seen it happen many times. It's really amazing. So if I get stuck with someone, that's the first place I go. I change my voice. I'm still the same person, you understand. And then another one of my favorite experts, Bonnie Badenoch, talks about starting with connection. And she points out that when we are trying to connect with our clients, we are filtering through our own implicit lenses and intentions. And inevitably, this will lead to some kind of rupture, since this filtering is not wholly accurate. So I find this, and my clients have found this very comforting. Even healthy mothers are out of attunement with their babies, and this was 2-year-olds that were studied, more than 80% of the time. 80% of the time. The difference is that the healthy mothers are very likely to offer repair. And that's a huge difference. The fourth ingredient is to create inner secure attachment instead of fragmentation. And EgoState Therapy, as some of you know, is an approach that I've worked with for many years, which differs from IFS and other parts models, in that the therapist is focusing on 4 relationship dimensions at the same time. Alliance with the client, first and foremost, alliance between the therapist and various ego states, alliance between the client and ego states, and then alliances of ego states with each other. And what I find is this creates a very deep, powerful experience and a container for change. Why do we work with ego states? Well, the best reason I can think of is that it's a way of expanding the ventral vagal circuit. It can also help you resolve inner conflicts and related symptoms that haven't responded to other symptoms, other approaches, sorry. And so this is a protocol that I created for correcting reversals and fragmentation. I'm just going to basically mention it here and tell you that I view a reversal as an indication of an inner conflict. Because what happens is the person's behavior is kind of the opposite of, or not in alignment with, the person's intention. So a classic example is I want to lose weight, and the person continues to gain more and more weight. So the basic approach we use to correct for reversal is an affirmation approach. You rub your neurolymphatic point over, especially on the left shoulder. You can do both at the same time. And then you affirm out loud 3 times, and I've changed the wording a little bit. I deeply and completely love, accept, and forgive myself, even with all my problems and limitations. And then there are variations. Some people cannot possibly say that, so they can say, I want to love and accept myself, etc. They could say, I wish I could get to the place where I can love and accept myself. And then you can add messages in the reversal correction that address the fragmentation and the inner conflict. And then finally, if there's a reversal, I assume there's an inner conflict. I can test for at least one part of me wants to get over this problem, at least one part of me does not. And so you'll have to read that for yourself to find out how it all turns out. But I do want to mention Sandy's ask and receive, which I love this. It's so simple and easy. The client repeats 5 statements. There's a part of my being that already knows how to heal and release whatever the problem is. And then you work through the other 4 steps. And I've seen amazing things happen. And you can modify this. It's flexible. And recently, Sandy used ask and receive with one of my most traumatized, disturbed people. And the client was able to achieve, finally, some behavioral and mood changes in the here and now. So Sandy's work and the ask and receive became an island of safety in an ocean of chaos and fear for her. So here are the 5 ingredients: safety and stability first, create corrective experiences with energy psychology, create secure attachment and repair in the therapy relationship, create inner secure attachment through EgoState Therapy, and refocus the thinking mind on the power of positive intention. Thank you so much for your attention today.